My ex-wife came over after fighting with her husband, and when she asked, "Can I stay here tonight?" I forgot how to breathe. 3 years since our divorce, 3 years since I signed the papers that broke us both, and now Claire was standing in my doorway at midnight. Rain in her hair, wedding ring still on her finger, mascara running from crying over a man who wasn't me. The woman I'd loved since we were 26, the wife I'd lost to my own pride and endless work, had just fought with the husband she left me for, and driven straight to my door. She used to knock 3 quick, 1 soft, our old rhythm, and my chest went tight before my brain caught up. I should have asked why. I should have thought about Mark, about what this meant, about the ring. But I stepped aside without a single question, because what she whispered next, standing in that hallway shaking, was the one thing I'd been waiting 3 years to hear, and the one thing that could destroy us both. "I don't know where else to go," she said, and then softer, almost too quiet to hear, "You're the only place that ever felt safe." I just stood there. The rain hissed against the porch behind her. Somewhere down the street a dog barked twice and went quiet. My whole body wanted to reach out and pull her in the way I used to, but 3 years builds a wall, and I didn't know if I was allowed to climb it anymore. "Get inside," I finally said. "You're soaked." She stepped past me, and I caught the smell of her. Rain, and underneath it that same faint vanilla she'd worn since we were kids in college. It hit me like a punch. Funny how a smell can drag 3 years back in a single second. I closed the door. The lock clicked, and just like that, Claire Bennett, no, Claire Sorensen now, I had to keep reminding myself, was standing in the middle of my kitchen at midnight, dripping on the floor of the life I'd built without her. She looked around slowly, at the table she'd let me keep, at the mismatched mugs, at the single plate in the drying rack. "You never got a bigger place," she said. "Didn't need one." Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. She wrapped her arms around herself. She was shaking, and I couldn't tell if it was the cold or the crying or both. "Sit," I said, "before you fall down." She sat, and I did the thing I didn't even think about, the thing my hands just did without asking my brain first. I filled the kettle. I pulled down the chipped blue mug. Her mug, the one I never used, the one I could never bring myself to throw away, and I dropped in the chamomile with a spoon of honey and that tiny pinch of cinnamon she used to swear made it a hug instead of a drink. I set it in front of her, and she broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just her face folding in on itself, both hands flying up to cover her mouth. Her shoulders heaving as the tears came in a way that told me they'd been building for a lot longer than one bad night. "You remembered," she whispered through her fingers. "Course I remembered. Mark doesn't even know I take honey." She laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that's really a sob wearing a costume. 3 years married, and he doesn't know I take honey in my tea. I sat down across from her. I didn't say anything. Some moments you don't fill with words, you just hold them open and let the other person walk through. "We had a fight," she said finally, staring into the mug like it might tell her what to do. "A stupid one. My sister got engaged. There's a dinner Friday. I asked him, I begged him, to move one work trip so he could be there with me. 3 times, Danny. I asked him 3 times. And he didn't." He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Her voice cracked. He said, "It's just a dinner. Your sister will understand." And I said, she stopped, pressed her lips together. I said I felt invisible. I said I could disappear from that house and it would take him a week to notice. The kettle ticked as it cooled. Rain drummed the window. "And you know what he did?" she whispered. "He didn't fight for me. He didn't say I was wrong. He just sighed, like I was a problem he was too tired to solve. And I grabbed my keys and I drove. And I didn't even know where I was going until I was on your street." She looked up at me then, and the guilt in her eyes nearly took me apart. "I shouldn't be here. This isn't fair to you. I'm married, and I showed up at my ex-husband's door in the middle of the night like some, I don't even know what. Tell me to leave, please, because I don't think I can make myself go." And there it was, the moment, the fork in the whole rest of my life. Because here's what she didn't know. Here's the thing I'd buried so deep I never said it out loud. Not to my friends. Not to my own reflection at 3 a.m. I never got over her. Not for one single day. I dated. I tried. There was a kind woman named Renee I saw for almost a year, and she was wonderful, and I let her go because every time she laughed I felt this small, cruel disappointment that it wasn't Claire's laugh. I lost the best parts of 3 years measuring every woman against a ghost. So when Claire sat there begging me to send her home, every selfish cell in my body screamed, don't. Keep her. Say the truth. Tell her the divorce was the biggest mistake you ever made. Tell her you'd take it all back. Tell her, but I looked at that ring on her finger, and I thought about the man who forgot she takes honey. He wasn't a monster. He was just a tired, distracted man who'd stopped paying attention, which, if I was being honest with myself, was the exact crime I'd been guilty of when I was her husband. I was the one who worked 80-hour weeks. I was the one who made her feel invisible first. Mark was just doing a worse job of the same thing that ended us. And I realized sitting there that if I pulled her into my arms tonight, if I let this be about my need instead of her healing, I'd be no better than the men who kept taking pieces of her and giving nothing back. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. You're not leaving, I said. It's raining, it's late, and you're in no shape to drive. You'll sleep here, in the bed. I'll take the couch. Her eyes widened. But Claire, I made myself say it. Nothing happens tonight. Not because I don't. My voice caught, and I had to look away. Not because I don't want it to, but because you deserve better than being someone's escape hatch at midnight. Even mine. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. When did you get like this? She whispered. Like what? Kind. This kind. A tear slid down. You weren't like this before. Yeah, well, I stood, gathering the mugs, because I needed something to do with my hands before they betrayed me. Losing you taught me a lot of things I wish I'd known sooner. I felt her eyes on my back the whole way to the sink. And when I turned around, she was crying again. But different this time. Softer. Like something frozen was starting to thaw. Danny, she said, can I ask you something? And will you tell me the truth? My heart slammed against my ribs. Always. She opened her mouth, and her phone lit up on the table between us, buzzing hard against the wood. Mark's name glowing on the screen, over and over and over. We both just stared at it. And I knew whatever she'd been about to ask me, the answer to it was ringing right there on the table. And neither of us was ready for what came next. Before I go on, if this story is pulling you in, do something for me real quick. Tap that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss the moment these two either find their way back or lose each other for good. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Now back to that phone, buzzing on the table between us. Claire didn't move. Her hand hovered over the phone like it was something hot. Mark's name kept flashing. Call 3, call 4. The screen lighting up her face in little pulses of blue. You should answer, I said, even though every part of me wanted to grab that phone and throw it into the rain. I can't. Her voice was thin. If I hear his voice right now, I'll just say sorry. I always say sorry. Even when it's not my fault. I'm the one who says sorry, and then nothing ever changes. The buzzing stopped. For 1 second, the whole kitchen went dead quiet. Then it started again. Claire. I crouched down beside her chair so we were eye to eye. He's calling because he's scared. It's midnight and his wife is gone and he doesn't know where. Whatever's broken between you two, he deserves to know you're alive. That's not about him. That's about you being the kind of person you are. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone, wiped her eyes, and answered. I'm okay, she said. Her voice came out steadier than I expected. I'm safe. I just needed some air. No, I'm not coming home tonight. I need to think. I could hear his voice through the speaker, not yelling. Low, confused, asking where she was. And Claire's eyes flicked to me, just for a heartbeat. Then she said, I'm at a friend's. She hung up before he could ask which friend. She set the phone face down on the table and let out a long, shaking breath, like she'd been holding it underwater. A friend? She repeated softly, almost laughing. That's what you are now. A friend. I'm whatever you need me to be tonight, I said. and I stood up before my knees gave out, because being that close to her face was doing things to my heart that I couldn't afford. I went to the closet and pulled out the spare blanket and pillow. When I came back, she was standing by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, her arms wrapped around herself. "Remember the storm?" she said, not turning around. "Our first apartment. The power went out for 2 whole days. I felt myself smile before I could stop it. You made me play cards by candlelight until 3 in the morning. You let me win. I did not. Danny." She finally turned, and there was the ghost of the girl I married in her eyes. "You always let me win. You think I never noticed? You'd get this little twitch in your jaw, right before you'd accidentally play the wrong card." I didn't know what to say, because she was right. I'd have lost every game in the world just to see her do that little victory dance. The silence stretched, and it wasn't empty. It was full of every good thing we'd thrown away, sitting there in the room with us like it wanted to be remembered. "Why did we do it?" she asked suddenly. Her voice broke on the last word. "Why did we let it fall apart? We loved each other. I know we did. So why wasn't that enough?" And this was the question I'd asked myself 1,000 nights. "Because we thought love was supposed to be easy," I said slowly. "We thought if it was real, it wouldn't need work. So when it got hard, we figured that meant it was over. But that's backwards, Claire. The hard part is the love. Showing up when you're tired. Fighting for someone when it'd be easier to walk away. Nobody ever taught us that. We had to lose it to learn it." Her chin trembled. "I learned it too late," she whispered. "Maybe," I swallowed. "Or maybe you're learning it right on time. Just with the wrong teacher." That landed harder than I meant it to. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, staring at her hands, at that ring. "He's not a bad man," she said quietly. "I need you to know that. Mark's not cruel. He doesn't drink, he doesn't yell, he's never once made me afraid. He's just—" She searched for the word. "He's gone. Even when he's sitting right next to me, he's gone. I feel more alone in that house than I ever felt living by myself." "I know that feeling," I said. "I put you through it first." She looked up, surprised. "That's the part one never got to say to you." I sat down on the coffee table across from her, close enough to see the tears clinging to her lashes. "When we were married, I was the one who was gone. Always at a job site, always chasing the next contract, telling myself I was building us a future while I let the present rot. You'd try to talk to me and I'd be answering emails. You'd ask me to be somewhere and I'd say, next month. I made you feel invisible, Claire. Long before Mark ever did." Her tears spilled over. "I used to think you left because you stopped loving me." I went on, and my own voice was cracking now. "It took me 2 years to understand the truth. You didn't leave because you stopped loving me. You left because I stopped showing you that I loved you. And there's a difference. God, there's such a difference." She was crying openly now, both hands over her mouth. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I know it's 3 years too late, but I've needed to say it every single day. I'm sorry I made you feel like a ghost in your own home. You deserved to feel seen. You still do." For a long moment she couldn't speak. The rain filled the silence. Then she reached out, slowly, carefully, and took my hand. Her fingers were cold. Mine were shaking. "Do you know what the worst part is?" she said. "The reason I ended up on your street tonight? It's because when I felt invisible with Mark, my heart didn't drive me to a bar. It didn't drive me to my sisters. It drove me here, to you. To the one place I ever felt completely, totally seen." She laughed through the tears. "Even after everything, even after all the pain we caused each other, my heart still thinks you're home." Couldn't breathe. This was it. This was the moment I dreamed about and dreaded. Her hand in mine, the truth on the table. The wall between us cracked wide open, and every selfish part of me wanted to pull her close and never let go. But I looked at that ring one more time. "Claire," I said gently, "you can't figure out what your heart wants while you're still married to someone else. It's not fair to him, and it's not fair to you. Whatever this is between us, and I think we both know there's still a this, it can't start tonight. Not like this. Not with you running from something instead of running to something. She stared at me, stunned. You're telling me no, she whispered. I'm telling you not yet. I squeezed her hand. Because if we ever get another chance, and Lord knows I want one, I don't want it built on a bad night and a broken heart. I want it built on you being sure, on you being free, on you choosing me with your whole heart in the daylight, not just reaching for me in the dark. And that's when she said the words that stopped my whole world. And what if I go home tomorrow, she said slowly, and I can't stop thinking about tonight? What if I end it with Mark? Not for you, but because I finally see the truth. What happens then, Danny? I opened my mouth to answer, and outside, headlights swept across the window. Car was pulling into my driveway, and through the rain, I saw a man's silhouette step out into the storm and start walking straight toward my door. Before this last scene begins, let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself before you answer in the comments. If the person who once broke your heart showed up at your door, changed, gentle, finally understanding everything they did wrong, would you have the strength to do what's right? Or would your heart make the choice for you? Hold that question. You'll need it by the end. Now that silhouette, walking through the rain toward my door. My whole body went cold. That's his car, Claire whispered, standing so fast she nearly knocked over the mug. That's Mark. How did he find me? And then it hit me. Find my phone, I said. Do you two share locations? Her face crumbled. We set it up on our honeymoon. 3 heavy knocks landed on my door. Not angry, just certain. Claire grabbed my arm. Danny, I can't. I'm not ready. What do I even say to him? I looked at her, this woman I loved more than my own breath, and I made the choice that cost me everything I wanted and gave her everything she needed. You say the truth, I said quietly. All of it. Not for me. For you. I gently peeled her fingers off my arm. And I'll be right here. Whatever you decide, I've got you. But this is your conversation to have. Not mine. I opened the door. Mark stood there in the rain, no umbrella, soaked to the bone. He was taller than me, dressed in the kind of coat men wear to offices I'd never work in. But his eyes weren't the eyes of an enemy. They were red, scared. The eyes of a man who just realized he might be losing the most important thing in his life. He looked at me, then passed me to Claire. So this is the friend, he said. But there was no venom in it. Just exhaustion. Just heartbreak. Mark, Claire started. I drove around for an hour, he said, his voice shaking. Every place I could think of. And then I saw the location and I thought, of course. Of course she went to him. He wiped rain from his face, or maybe it was more than rain. And you know what killed me, Claire? It wasn't jealousy. It was that you had somewhere to run. And I realized I didn't even know you had somewhere to run. Because I stopped knowing you a long time ago. The kitchen went silent. Claire stepped forward, into the doorway, into the space between 2 men who'd both failed her in the exact same way. I didn't come here to cheat on you, she said. Nothing happened. Danny wouldn't let it. He told me to call you. He made me tea and he told me to go home and figure out my own heart. She laughed softly, sadly. The man you thought stole your wife spent all night pushing me back toward you. Mark looked at me, something breaking open in his face. But Mark, Claire continued, and now the tears came. The reason I ran here isn't the problem. The reason is why I needed to run at all. I told you I felt invisible and you sighed. I asked you to show up for me, and you called it just a dinner. I have been begging you to see me for 2 years, and tonight I realized. I've been so hungry to be seen that I drove to the one place someone once did. Claire, I can change, Mark said, and his voice cracked wide open. I'll move the trip. I'll go to the dinner. It was never about the dinner, she said gently. It was about the fact that I had to beg. And there it was. The truth, spoken plain, in the rain at midnight. Mark stood there for a long moment. And then, and this is the part one didn't expect, the part that made me respect him. He nodded slowly, like a man finally hearing something he should have heard years ago. You're right, he said quietly. You're right. And I hate that you're right. He looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. I don't know if we can fix it, but I know you don't fix anything standing in another man's doorway at 1 in the morning. Come home, Claire. Not to pretend nothing happened. To decide together what happens next. You owe yourself that. You owe us at least that. And Claire turned and looked at me. This was the moment. Everything I wanted was standing 3 feet away with cold hands and a broken heart. All I had to do was say one word and maybe, she'd stay. But love, real love, isn't about what you get to keep. It's about what you're willing to let go of so someone you love can heal. Go, I said softly. Go figure out your life, Claire. Do it right. Do it in the daylight. Her eyes filled. She understood exactly what I was doing. What it cost me. Thank you, Danny, she whispered, for being the person tonight that I always knew you could be. And then she walked out into the rain to her husband, and they drove away. Not happy, not fixed, but honest. And I stood in my doorway and watched the taillights disappear, and I let myself cry for the first time in 3 years, because I'd finally done the right thing and it had broken my heart to do it. I told myself that was the end, that I'd had my one night, said my one truth, and now I'd go back to my quiet life with her ghost. I was wrong, because here's what I learned about doing the right thing. Sometimes life pays you back when you least expect it. 5 weeks passed. 5 weeks of silence. I threw myself into work, but different this time. I left the site at 5, I called my mother. I made dinner for 1 and didn't feel so empty doing it. Losing Claire the second time taught me the lesson the first time hadn't. A life is built in the small moments you choose to show up for. Then, on a Saturday morning, 3 quick knocks and 1 soft. I opened the door so fast I nearly tripped. Claire stood there. No rain this time. Morning sun on her face. And her left hand, I looked before I could stop myself, was bare. I ended it, she said. Her voice was calm. Sure. Nothing like the shaking woman from that stormy night. Mark and I tried counseling for a month. And we both finally admitted the truth. We'd become good roommates who forgot how to love each other. We ended it kindly. No war. Just 2 people letting go of something that was already gone. I couldn't speak. I didn't come here for you, she said. And my heart dropped until she smiled. I didn't come here because of you. I needed to leave for me first. You were right about that. I had to choose my own freedom before I could choose anything else. She took a breath. But now I'm free, Danny. And I'm standing in the daylight. And I'm sure. She stepped closer. So I'm asking you the way you told me to, with my whole heart, in the sunlight, not running from anything. Her eyes shone. Do you still want a second chance? Because I've loved you since I was 26, and I never once stopped. I just forgot how to show it. And I don't want to forget again. And every wall I'd built in 3 years came crashing down at once. I stepped forward and I took her face in my hands. Her real face, not a ghost, not a memory. And I kissed her the way I should have kissed her every single day of our marriage. Like she was the most seen, most treasured, most uninvisible person in the whole entire world. And she kissed me back, laughing and crying at the same time, her arms around my neck like she was finally home. We got remarried the next spring. Small ceremony. Her sister cried. I didn't work a single 80-hour week ever again. And every night, no matter how tired I am, I make her a cup of tea, chamomile, honey, a tiny pinch of cinnamon, and I set it down in front of her, and I watch her face light up like it's the first time. Because I learned the most important thing too late the first time, but right on time the second. Love isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person, and then showing up every single day to prove it. So let me leave you with this. That night, I chose to send the woman I loved back to another man, because it was the right thing to do. Would you have had the strength to do the same? Or would you have kept her? Be honest in the comments. There's no wrong answer, only an honest one. And if this story moved you, even a little, subscribe and turn on that bell. Because the next story might just be the one that changes how you love, too.